tonight. No end to the political drama in Rivers State as some supporters of Governor Fubara hold rallies to back his administration. Former governor of the state, Wike, says he's still in charge of the state. Looming implosion in the ruling APC in Benue State as Governor Alia suspends constituency by-election primary hours after the party announced its flag bearer for the poll. United Nations to cut funding for the nation's humanitarian support for 2024 says crisis significantly reduced as attention shifts to the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. And the United States Supreme Court moves to hear a historic case to determine whether Mr. Donald Trump can run for president this year.
And on business news tonight, Federal Inland Revenue Service directs banks in the country to commence deduction of 15-hour charge as electronic money transfer levy from foreign currency transactions.
And on sports news tonight, the Brazilian Football Confederation declares a week of mourning and a minute's silence at marches following the death of World Cup winner Mario Zagallo.
The political crisis in Rivers State may have been resolved, and as the major actors continue to implement the items on the presidential peace agreement, their supporters seem to have found ways to keep the issues on the front burner. Supporters of Governor Fubara today embarked on a ward-to-ward awareness to gather support for him. Now, despite what he terms the constitutional contradictions in the terms of the resolution, the member representing Andoni Okpobo-Nkoro Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives says his constituents have resolved to abide by the resolution brokered by the president.
Political sensitization at the ward levels by supporters of Governor Fubara seems to be the order of the day in Rivers State. Like in other local government areas, the story is the same in Obiako, where indigents and non-indigents in the 4 communities of Ward 1 gathered to reaffirm their support for the governor. Now, despite being the political ward of the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Martin Amewule, who recently defected to the All Progressives Congress APC along with 24 other members, the people say the support remains with the governor.
Not because it make you. Now somebody make you chairman in 1999. Now somebody give you chairman as a container. Now person give you chief of staff. Jonathan and their wife make you governor. Against all odds. How you treat them?
The 17 wards of Obiako local government area to ensure that same movement gets to all the nooks and crannies. After now, we will be going unit by unit to sensitize the people and to tell the people that the structure of SIM is even in the units. And so we are solidified.
Equatorial people are warriors in their right. So when we decide to follow you, we are following you out of love. If you remember, when the former governor Rotimi Amechi felt that he has arrived and he dared Rivers people told him, we are not going to follow you. Did we follow him?
The convener of the awareness campaign and state chairman of the National Youth Council of Nigeria says the youth are more determined to defend the governor's mandate as he implements the presidential peace accord.
You can see that all those who are working with Fubara are youth. I'm a youth, or other youths are with him because this is time for the youth. Not the past governor who loves old people. This is time for young people and Rivers people are celebrating.
Meanwhile, another group of supporters are here at Ngo Town to also rally support for the governor. For the member representing Andoni Okpobo-Nkoro Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, Awaji Inombek Ambiante, his constituents have resolved to abide by the peace agreement.
So we have come to let the entire world know that Siminalayi Fubara remains the governor of Rivers State, that he earned our votes. He was not handpicked. He was not just nominated. Several insinuations are out there that one man made him governor. That is not correct.
While the presidential peace agreement may have restored some level of peace in Rivers State, the political consciousness that the crisis has given rise to appears to be an interesting element in the state's politics.
The Minister of the FCT, Mr. Wike, displaying his dancing skills during a visit to the APC Zonal Vice President, Mr. Victor Ogoni, in his hometown of Bera in Gokana local government area of River State, where he was received with dancing and singing by the people. In his address to the crowd, the former River State governor maintains that he has no regrets for supporting President Bola Tinubu against the wishes of his party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP. He says there's no question about who is in charge in Rivers politics, and that when the time for politics comes, he will show his mettle.
Your Excellency, it is good to make an impact in the life of people. Forget about these hungry noisemakers on the road. When the time comes, we'll know who is in charge or who is not in charge. I don't know whether you understand what I say. There's a time for everything. There's a time to plant. There's a time to harvest. We have no time for politics. There's no time for anybody to say, I'm for this, I'm for that. We have not reached that time. When the time will reach, we will know who is there, who. If he didn't dare, he didn't dare. If we did not contest election based on social media. We contested election talking to the people listening to us and believing in us. My dear people of Gokana, particularly the Bera people, I don't play politics because you're in this party, you're in the other party, and then you avoid friendship. No. Party will come and go. Friendship will remain. I have no regret when I stood by with my colleagues and friends that this is the period the presidency must go to the south. There was nothing I was not offered. I said no. Iendeba. Now that you have taken, let these other people take. And I have no regret. Turn by turn. I understand for it. I have no regret at all. And that's why I will continue to support the government of Aswaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu.
Staying with politics, this time in Benue, where the internal crisis in the state chapter of the All Progressives Congress APC resurfaced today, with Governor Hyacinth Alia announcing the immediate suspension of the Guma 1 state constituency by-election primary to nominate the party's candidate. The announcement came 4 hours after the party structure in the state, believed to be loyal to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, conducted and announced Mr. Uche Peter as the party's flag bearer. Trouble started yesterday with the disqualification of the consensus candidate put forward by the governor's camp of the party by the APC screening committee, leaving only Mr. Peter as the only aspirant for the party.
The caretaker chairman of Guma Local Government Council of Benue State, another party faithful from the area, arrived the old banquet hall of Government House in Makadi, the state capital, for what appears to be an emergency meeting convened by the state government. Soon, Governor Hyacinth Alia joins the meeting along with security chiefs, and he explains the reason for summoning them to the Government House.
This day is expected to be a day the APC in the state to conduct the delegate primaries, but unfortunately it's been marred by misconduct, and this was posing some threats and insecurity in the local government of Guma. And this is why it's become very important that I suspend the delegate primaries that is expected to be in place today. Sad enough, the party faithfuls came out to do their franchise, but then they were stopped at the gates. Some people that do not belong to the local government at all were big politicians from other local governments came and hijacked.
The Guma Local Government Caretaker Committee chairman reinforces Governor Alia's claims of prevalent insecurity in the area and how the process was hijacked.
The whole place was tense. I saw some security personnel. Police were there, more than 200 armed policemen. So I introduced myself to them that I am the chief security officer of my local government. If they will allow me access to the place. I was denied access to the place, yes, as chairman. So shortly after that, I saw some officials, they arrived. Shortly after their arrival, the likes of Honorable Zam Titus, who is not a member of the constituent. Honorable Titus Zam, Ambassador Tazo was there, Achuma Chado was there, State Party Chairman was there, and all. So they whisked the officials away. That was what happened. So there was no primaries? There was no primaries.
But the state APC publicity secretary, Dan Nuhomu, gives an account of what really transpired at the venue of the primary election.
I was there, I witnessed the elections myself. He scored 25 votes. The runner-up in that election, Honorable Maurice Owo, scored 3 votes, and there were 1 invalid vote. The first question I asked you to ponder about is, does the governor have the power to suspend the party's primary elections? Your guess is as good as mine. And so, the elections was conducted under a very peaceful atmosphere. You can go and find out from in that constituency. That town has remained very peaceful. The people are jubilating.
Meanwhile, the ruling APC in Benue State appears to be divided. The impact of political disagreement is beginning to affect communities, with the governor alleging threats to public safety in parts of the state.
The United Nations believe the humanitarian crisis in Nigeria has significantly reduced, such that funding for its missions, especially in the northeast, is no longer top priority for it. This is according to the outgoing UN resident and humanitarian coordinator for Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Shimale, who explains that the UN is cutting its funding for Nigeria's humanitarian support for 2024 as attention shifts to wars in Ukraine and Gaza. He made this known in an interview with Channels Television in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital.
I would like to say that the funding environment is becoming increasingly challenging globally. You know, humanitarian needs are rising. You know, the latest crisis in Gaza, but Sudan, Ukraine, of course. So the needs at global level are rising around the world, and resources are not rising at the same pace. So we're really struggling in many parts of the world, including here in Nigeria. This year, we asked for $1.3 billion to support the operation here in the Northeast, and we got about 40% of that, 520 million. So that gives you a sense of how challenging it is. Some of our key donors, like the United States, have clearly said that for next year they will give less, up to 40% less. So the funding environment is becoming challenging, and as a result, the main reason I was here this time was to chair our humanitarian country team meeting monthly to finalize our plans for next year. And we are having to become even more focused in terms of our operation. Just simply, we don't have the resources.
In part 2, after the break, Former chairman of Imo Traditional Council kidnapped. Plus, we shift attention to the National Assembly as we continue our series on the task ahead of the government in 2024. That's in a moment. Join us again.
Love is the best feeling in the world. I would like you to come up and give us a brief highlight of the union.
I met a girl.
I met a guy. We fell in love.
And I wifed her like a boss.
Oh, really?
I'm very nervous.
No, you don't need to be nervous. I actually thought that was cute. I love you too. First we prayed.
Your marriage will blossom with love.
Forward ever, backward never. Amen. Then we danced.
We cried.
Oh, she cried a lot. And we cheered. I love you, Mrs. Adeoye.
I love you, Mr. Adeoye.
Unlock your blessings with Siemens Schnapps.
Hi.
You don't know when you have bacteria breath, and bacteria may be the cause of it. Don't let bacteria breath get all the attention. Use Close-Up with antibacterial zinc. Close-Up helps get rid of bacteria breath.
Have you heard that you can now print glossy, high-quality, 7 pages, 8-2 size wall calendars for just 120,000 naira only, and A3 size for just 60,000 naira only, and it will be produced and delivered to anywhere of your choice in Nigeria within 96 hours, without even having to leave your room. Listen. This is how it works. Just open WhatsApp, send your pictures and other content, and you will receive your custom design online for your approval within 24 hours. What are you waiting for? Call our hotline for more details on 0913 156 5016. 0812-794-9323 or 0815-508-8279 or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
3 emerging artists, 4 mega producers, 3 record deals with Empire. Do you have what it takes?
So if you want to take your craft to the next level, grab your front row seat to the Pepsi Music Academy.
This is one ecosystem.
Wherever you find yourself in the music spectrum, this is for you.
Pepsi Music Academy, in partnership with Empire, is Nigeria's confirmed music development program, created to discover, train, and showcase talents. Scan the QR code on any of our cool interactive Pepsi bottles or visit www.g to register for free and stand a chance to kickstart your music career with a 2-year record deal with Empire. Follow Pepsi_Naija on all social media platforms for more. Pepsi Music Academy. Stardom begins here. Pepsi. Thirsty for more.
In Imo State, a former chairman of the State Council of Traditional Rulers, His Royal Highness Samuel Ohiri, has been abducted from his residence in Ibatoli, local government area of the state. It was gathered that the monarch was kidnapped in the early hours of today by 4 heavily armed men who came with a green-colored Toyota Highlander and took him away. In a statement by the police spokesperson in the state, Mr. Henry Okoye, explains that the command has commenced an investigation and taken some steps towards ensuring that the traditional ruler is rescued. Meanwhile, the 1 week of mourning declared by Governor Caleb Bufuang for those killed in the recent attacks on 3 councils of Plateau State climaxed with prayers today. The prayers were offered by Muslim faithful at the Jos Central Mosque, while the Initiative for Better and Brighter Nigeria had a prayer rally across major streets of the state capital.
Following the declaration of 7 days of mourning by Governor Caleb Bufuang of Plateau State, following the Christmas Eve attacks in some communities in the state, the mourning period was concluded with prayers at various locations for peace in the state and the nation. Muslim faithful converged on the Jos Central Mosque to kickstart a series of prayers for peace and progress in the state and for speedy recovery of the injured.
We prayed for all those that lost their lives. May God grant them eternal peace. I'm calling on all Plateau people that we should live in peace. Because if we are united, we'll move as one. But if we are divided, we'll fall. And I'm calling on Plateau people, let's love one another. We can't live without each other.
Father, let the wind of judgment blow them out.
Members of the Initiative for Better and Brighter Nigeria, led by Prophet Isa El-Buba, converged on the Secretariat Junction for the prayers. They also have their demand.
We are asking the security forces and the Nigerian government, President Tinubu, to make sure that those people are uprooted from all of this. We give you 21 days. 21 days starting from today. If you don't take an action, we the citizens will still gather here. We the citizens will gather here. We will gather to demand that the right thing must be done.
In the meantime, those displaced by the attacks are still hoping for intervention from the government to enable them return to their homes safely.
To other matters now, the Accountant General of the Federation, Dr. Oluwatoyin, has clarified that her office does not make payments on behalf of ministries, departments and agencies for projects and programs implemented by the MDAs. The AGF was reacting to reports concerning a request from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation for payment of grants to vulnerable groups in some states of the Federation. In a statement today, she explains that allocations are released to self-accounting MDAs in line with the budget, and as such, MDAs are responsible for the implementation of their projects and payments for those projects. The AGF adds that although her office received the said request from the ministry, it did not carry out the payment. A document recently emerged showing that the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, allegedly disbursed over 500 million naira into a personal account meant for vulnerable groups in Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Ogun, and Lagos states. But in her reaction, Dr. Edu has insisted that the said payment for the vulnerable group followed due process and denied any wrongdoing. 2023 witnessed a transition from the 9th National Assembly to the 10th, with Senator Godswill Akpabio emerging as the President of the Senate and Honorable Abbas Tajuddin as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Amid the myriad of challenges facing the nation, the 10th National Assembly has its work cut out this year. We continue our series looking at the task ahead of the government in 2024. Tonight, we turn attention to the federal legislature. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, has this report.
2023 was an election year, and federal lawmakers resumed plenary with an eye on the politics of returning to the National Assembly. Already, February 25, 2023 was slated for the election into the Senate and House of Representatives. Members of the 9th Assembly became fully submerged in politicking, apparently to regain their seats as the Assembly wound down. By the time the results of elections trickled in, the age-long high turnover rate of lawmakers became a subject of 7%. The situation is worse in the House of Representatives, where 160 members, 260 were elected for the first time, while only 100 were re-elected.
Senator Godswill Akpabio.
After a keenly contested exercise, Senator Godswill Akpabio emerged as President of the Senate, while Senator Barau Jibrin emerged as Deputy Senate President.
Abbas Tajuddin.
Honorable Tajuddin Abbas emerged as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, while Honorable Benjamin Kalu was returned unopposed as Deputy Speaker.
Rules of the chambers.
After resolving the leadership issue, the next is the jostle for principal offices, as well as the chairmanship of various standing committees in both chambers. The House of Representatives indicated the issues that would shape the 10th Assembly as they unveiled their 8-point legislative agenda. The lawmakers also considered several bills, including the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2023, the Federal Audit Service Act Amendment Bill 2023, the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act Amendment Bill, the 2023 and the Oath Act Repeal and Enactment Bill 2023. The bills are still undergoing legislative process. The lawmakers also considered several motions on national security, the economy, as well as public hearings on job racketeering in the federal civil service. The first appropriation bill in the life of the 10th National Assembly was presented on November 29, and ministries, departments and agencies attended the budget defense sessions. The lawmakers eventually passed the budget 31 days after its presentation.
And those again say nay. The ayes have it. They are not here.
The budget have to be reviewed depending on what the executive wants. That the National Assembly will monitor the budget performance and from time to time and review the budget. I believe we are learning. It's a learning process. Everybody's on it, but we are doing well for now.
The first seating of lawmakers in 2024 is scheduled for January 23, and many believe there's a lot of room for improvement on their legislative duties.
The essence of having a parliament as a whole arm of government is because there will always be the need to make new laws or amend existing laws. Part of our goal is to further look into areas of our law that will enhance national unity. In the 9th Assembly, we did all we could to amend the Electoral Bill of 2020. In fact, we repealed and reenacted and came up with the Electoral Bill of 2022, which was signed into law. It is our desire to further look in that direction and come up with further amendments.
The 10th Assembly hopes to strengthen good governance, improve national security, carry out law reforms, social sector reforms, and open parliament, among other issues. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
We'll have more on the tax ahead of the National Assembly, and Professor Jideofor Adibe will be discussing that with us. But before we get to that discussion, let's look at the Nigerian Customs Service, which has seized contraband they say is worth over 400 million naira during various operations within the northwest and north central zones. Amongst the seized items are 37 bills and 4 rolls of police camouflage uniforms stuck inside a container. 4 suspects were also arrested in connection with the seizure. The controller in charge of the Federal Operations Unit Zone B, Mr. Dalla Chedi, gave the details at a media briefing on the operations of the agency between November and December 2023 in Kaduna State.
Remarkably, among the 71 seized items with the arrest made on the 15th December 2023, at about 1400 hours, the operators of the unit arrested a container truck based on credible intelligence along Dateline Abuja Expressway, suspected to be conveying prohibited items. After 100% physical examination, 37 bales and 4 rolls of Nigerian police camouflage uniforms, along other different items, were discovered in the truck. 4 suspects were arrested in connection with the seizure. Concerning the nature of the items and its possibility of being utilized for nefarious activities by the unscrupulous element, the seized police camouflage uniforms, the 4 suspects together with the means of conveyance, were all handed over to the State Director, Department of State Security DSS. Kaduna State Command on Wednesday, 27 December 2023, for further investigation and possible prosecution in the spirit of interagency collaboration and having obtained necessary approval from the Comptroller General of Customs. It's also pertinent to let you know that the seizures were made in different parts of the zone with a duty paid value of 406,924,091 naira 34 kobo only. The breakdown shows that due to the positive use of credible intelligence by the FOEs on B operatives, 8 used vehicles as well as 2 means of conveyance vehicles were impounded during the period under review.
Still ahead on the news at 10, the Federal Inland Revenue Service directs banks in the country to begin deduction of 50 naira charge as electronic money transfer levy from all foreign currency transactions. That's on Business News. Join us again.
You fit not know when your mouth dey smell. Plus, if it be say na nyama dirty for mouth, wey dem dey call bacteria, dey cause am. No let bacteria embarrass you. Use Close-Up, we get antibacterial zinc. Close-Up, it go help you fight mouth odor wey bacteria dey cause.
Love motivates. It inspires. We have Uche and Chidima. A round of applause for them.
Make all your ups and downs come only in the bedroom.
Welcome, sir. What is there? I see you know the way. The prayers were great. You will be fruitful. Amen. And I pray that your home will be blessed.
Amen.
Our entrance was lit. So I went on a quest to find my best friend.
I
will live happily ever after. Unlock your blessings with Siemens Schnapps.
Welcome back to examine the talks ahead of the 10th National Assembly. Let's go live to our Abuja studios, where a professor of political science and International Relations at the Nasarawa State University, KEFI, Professor Jideofor Adibe, is joining us to discuss this issue. A pleasure having you with us, and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you too.
So, Prof, last year we saw the transition from the 9th to the 10th National Assembly. How would you assess the performance of the federal legislature in 2023?
Well, you know, for people who are looking for a very adversarial relationship with the executive, which I don't think it should really be, they will be disappointed because there was this tendency for, you know, non-robust interrogation of issues. For example, during the screening of the ministers, ministerial nominees, people expected more robust interrogations. And so quickly people concluded that because both the National Assembly and the executive are from the same political parties, that they were more likely going to be just mere rubber stamps. We hope they will not be. But what we're also going to emphasize, for example, is not just, we don't expect them to be very cantankerous and just fighting the executive, but we expect them to be able to reflect more the mood of the people. For example, they should play more role in terms of helping to cut the cost of governance. The issue of SUVs worth 160 million at a time the country is going through, you know, extreme hardship. That did not make for good optics. The issue of quickly, very easily approving loan requests from the government at a point where we were spending 96% of the revenue. In fact, as at the first 6 months of last year, we spent 99% of the revenue just to service debts. And the National Assembly kept, you know, approving. Of course, we know the situation is challenging. And they have been able actually to do quite a lot in terms of turning out a number of legislations and approving the budgets in record time. But we also expect them to do more. In July last year, they came up with a 6-point legislative agenda, the House of Reps. We expect them to look more closely at those agendas they set for themselves and know the areas they need to fine-tune. Some of the issues in the agenda they mentioned were issues of accountability. And in the light of what has been happening, has also, you know, came up in the news. There's more, need to do more. The issue of security, the issue of increasing hardship in the country, they need to revisit their own agenda, the 6-point agenda from the House. And on top of that, I would like them to look more at the issue of mounting, you know, debts. They should discourage the federal executive, executive from, you know, binging on debts. And part of the ways they can do that is to encourage them, you know, to cut the cost of governance and ramp up revenue from other sectors instead of this easy resorts to borrowing. So on the other, on overall, it's still relatively new. It's still relatively a new 10th Assembly. They've set an agenda. The country is going through hardship, so it's extremely difficult to give them, you know, high marks when the general society is in hardship.
Now, Professor Adibe, you mentioned something that many people consider the 9th Assembly a rubber stamp legislature. So let's talk more about that. Do you think that the 10th Assembly will make a departure from that tag? Because they said it several times that they will not be a rubber stamp.
Well, let me say that some people believe that the National Assembly is not rubber stamp only when it is very adversarial, only when it seems to be fighting the executive. That is not necessarily so. But they should be able, for example, to be seen to be independent. Independent doesn't necessarily mean there should be no collaboration. I have pointed out the issue of the ease with which it approves loan requests from the government. I was also not happy, for example, some of the excursions, luxurious excursions, like taking over 411 people to the COP28. The huge delegation that went to UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. There are ways the National Assembly can pile pressure on the executive. Of course, they may be doing that discreetly without our knowing. But so far, to the extent that most of the requests from the the executive have been approved, gives the impression of this rubber stamp. And so they need to do more. Needing to do more means being able to, attune themselves more, reflecting the general mood of the country, being seen to checkmate some of the excesses of the executive. That's what people expect, and that will make people believe that they are independent. As I said, being independent does not necessarily mean being adversarial.
Now, you mentioned security, which should be one of the things the 10th National Assembly should be focusing on this year. What other things do you think the federal lawmakers should make priority #1 this year?
I would actually like them to prioritize nation building, because if you look at the six-point agenda that they developed in July, there was no room for nation building. And many people will argue that a primary problem we have today is that the nation is, the nation is so divided. We can say that the nation building process seems to have stalled. And for me, unless we get the nation building right, every solution you throw at our multifarious problems quickly becomes part of the problem. So we need to restart the nation building process, especially after the highly contested election, the election which I believe widened the social distance among Nigerians. We saw the weaponization of ethnicity. We saw the mobilization of primordial sentiments. We saw people came to believe that Nigeria has never been so divided. So, and what is this nation building? It is simply the deliberate use of state instruments to will together people, the constituent parts of the country. And the government the National Assembly, they need to go back to some of those strategies that were evolved in the past, like the NYSC scheme, and try to add and update some of them, because we can say that the process of de-Nigerianization, that is a number of people losing faith in the Nigeria process, is accelerating. And we need to make more Nigerians have faith in the Nigeria project. If we don't get that, every other problem, every solution you try to throw at our problems become quickly part of the problems.
Professor Jide Ofor Adibe, a pleasure sharing your thoughts with us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
Relative harmony may have returned to Ogoni land in Rivers State following progress on the cleanup of the environment polluted from oil exploration activities. But some residents say most of their demands are yet to be met by the federal government. They complain about political marginalization and exploitation as the people commemorate their 31st anniversary. The day was set aside by the United Nations and adopted by the Ogoni people to commemorate their continuous struggle and agitations for equity and justice. Our correspondent, Deborah Agbalaba, has this report.
It's another 4th of January, a day globally celebrated as World Indigenous Peoples Day by the United Nations and adopted by the Ogoni indigenous ethnic nationality around the world as their day. It's a day strong voices amongst them lend their voices to issues around the pollution of their land due to oil exploration, justice for the execution of the late environmentalist Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others, and political marginalization amongst others. This year, they mark the 31st anniversary at Borikana LGA, and as expected, it came with the usual festivities as the day is of great significance to them. At the event, the governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, represented by his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu, assures the people of Ogoni land of his administration's plans to develop the area.
He wants me to briefly tell you people that development, bringing development to Ogoni, is something that he has put as one of his top priorities. He knows that we have talked about electricity in Ogoni land. We have talked about security in Ogoni land. And he has asked me to tell us that those are going to be some of his top priorities of his government.
Regardless of these great promises, an Ogoni son and environment activist, Celestine Akpobari, insists that both the federal and state governments, even after many years, are yet to fully implement their demands.
When Nigeria returned to full-blown democracy in 1999, there were only 2 issues plaguing Nigeria: the Ogoni problem and the June 12. June 12 issue have been completely settled. The Ogoni matter has never been touched at all. All the legitimate demands of the people are enshrined in the Ogoni Bill of Rights, which the Ogoni people submitted to the federal government of Nigeria in 1990. No one has been touched.
He laments that what has been released for the cleanup and restoration of livelihood of his people is just a tiny drop from the revenue of the IOCs. Mr. Akpobari also condemns recent moves by some persons to resume oil exploration in Ogoni land when the pollution is yet to be fully cleaned up.
People that have good thinking cap, we focus on the cleanup, get to some point, then come to discuss with the people. They are behaving as if nothing happened at all. Something happened, because over 2,000 people were murdered, including Ken Saro-Wiwa. People died. We also heard that the NNPC released $300 million for the development of Ogoni, and that money was paid into somebody's pocket. We want to find out who collected the money.
On its part, the Federal Ministry of Environment, through the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HYPRAP, assures the people of Ogoni land of their commitment to implementing the recommendations of the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP report on the cleanup of Ogoni land. HYPRAP's coordinator, Professor Ninabarani Zabe, in a statement, assures the residents that with some water schemes already completed and over 100 projects ongoing, it proves that the remediation and restoration projects have kicked off in full scale. Professor Ninabarani Zabe, in a statement, noted that in the spirit of Ogoni Day anniversary, it is time for innovative and effective stakeholders' engagements to attain shared objectives. From Borikana, local government area of Rivers State, Deborah Balama, Channels Television News.
The president of the Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, has been reacting to a visit by EFCC officials to the company's headquarters in Lagos on January the 4th. In a statement, Alhaji Dangote explains that the company received a letter requesting for details of all the foreign exchange allocated to the company by the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, from 2014 till date. And similar letters were sent to 51 other group of companies requesting for the same information spanning the same period. They responded to the EFCC to acknowledge the receipt of the letter while seeking clarifications on the subsidiaries or companies within the group that they required information on. They also requested for additional time to comply and properly present the extensive documentation spanning 10 years. However, the EFCC did not provide the clarification sought and also did not honor their request for an extension and insisted on receiving the complete set of documents within the limited time frame. Despite this constraint, they ensured and assured the EFCC of their commitment to provide the information and pledged to share the documents in batches as they complete the compilation. On January the 4th, 2024, the Dangote team delivered the first batch of documents to the EFCC. However, the officials of the commission did not accept the documents, insisting on visiting the Dangote offices to collect the same set of documents directly. While Dangote representatives were still at the EFCC's office to deliver the documents. A team of their officers proceeded to visit some Dangote offices to demand for the same documents in a manner that appeared designed to cause unwarranted embarrassment. Now, worthy of note, the statement adds, is the fact that the officials did not take any documents or files from the Dangote head office during their visit, as these were already in their office. The statement also emphasizes that there's no knowledge or no accusation of any wrongdoing which has been made against the company within the group. And at present, they are responding to a request for information to assist the EFCC with their ongoing investigation. And as law-abiding and ethical corporate citizens, the Dangote Group remains committed to providing the EFCC with all necessary information and cooperation. They have already delivered the first batch of documents and are actively working to compile and submit the remaining documents in good time to aid the investigation. The Dangote Group is a key contributor to the national GDP, the largest employer in the private sector, one of the largest groups listed on the Nigerian exchange, and one of the highest taxpayers in the country. The group remains steadfast in their belief in Nigeria's commitment to the rule of law and its dedication to fostering an environment conducive for investment and value creation for both local and foreign investors. Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Will Ibong has details.
Thanks, Melinda. Welcome to Business News. We begin with the Federal Inland Revenue Service directing deposit money banks in the country to begin the deduction of 50 naira charged as electronic money transfer levy for all foreign transactions in the country. According to notices received by some banks and cited by Channels Television, electronic money transfer levy, or ETML, which is a stamp duty charge, extends to foreign currency deposits equivalent to 10,000 naira and above. The tax agency also asks banks to apply the deductions on international currency transfers executed from January the 1st of 2021, which is the effective take-off date for the Finance Act. Meanwhile, the financial institution said the deductions have already commenced, while its proceeds will be remitted to the FIRS as mandated by regulatory authorities. Now, Nigeria's Foreign Reserve has reacted positively to the announcement of a loan from the African Import-Export Bank, as latest data from the central bank shows that the external buffers increased to $33.042 billion as of January the 3rd. This marks a $13 million accretion from the $32.91 billion level at which it closed the final trading day of 2023. The Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, has mentioned that the amount represents the bank's first tranche of the $3.3 billion facility to resolve the acute FX shortage that has hampered the economy. Before now, the country's forex reserves had dropped by $1.65 billion to $32 billion since the CBN began its unification of the exchange rates. Now, the domestic stock market ended the first trading week of 2024 and January strongly positive, recording 3 milestones within the 4 trading sessions after resuming from the New Year holiday with a hangover of wins. The impact of bargain hunting from blue chips such as MTN Nigeria, Airtel Africa, and the banking sector components drove the all-share index to a new historical high of more than 79,000 points, and the market cap at over 43 trillion naira, with year-to-date performance at 6.54%. Performance on the sectoral indexes table was also positive, particularly from the insurance and banking counters, which gained 14.08 and 10.29% accordingly. Now, Transcorp was top out of 88 gainers, with more than 46% gain on its share price. CNI Leasing led 16 other losers with 39.64% loss, while the trio of Fidelity Bank, FCMB, and Sterling Bank were the major contributors to a total of 3.32 billion equities traded this week. And that's it on Business News. It's back to Melinda for the rest of the news at 10.
Latest from the world of sports, here is Victoria Longjohn.
Thank you, Melinda. Welcome to Sports News. The Brazilian Football Confederation has announced that the funeral of late football legend Mario Zagallo will be held on Sunday in Rio de Janeiro after the full-time World Cup winning player and coach died at the age of 92. The Football Federation said the funeral will be followed by a burial at the São Batista Cemetery, the final resting place of some of Brazil's most famous people. Zagallo, who played alongside Pelé in Brazil's 1958 and 1962 World Cup winning teams, died on Friday night of multiple organ failure at a hospital in Rio after suffering a series of health problems in recent months. He was the first man to win the World Cup as both player and coach. The only others are Franz Beckenbauer of Germany in 1974 and 1990, and Didier Deschamps of France in 1998 and 2018. And in English FA Cup, Mario Broja, Thiago Silva, Raheem Sterling and Enzo Fernandez scored as Chelsea thrashed Preston North End to advance to the fourth round of the competition. Newcastle United ended their 13-year wait to beat bitter rival Sunderland as Alexander Isak's double inspired a 3-0 win. Sheffield United defeated League Two side Gillingham 4-0 thanks to doubles from William Musula and James McCarthy. AFC Bournemouth scored 3 second-half goals as they recovered from a 2-0 down to win 3-2 at Championship strugglers Queen's Park Rangers. And Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta says winning the FA Cup 4 years ago gave him more credit as he looks ahead to his side's third-round tie with Liverpool on Sunday. Arteta is urging fans to help make Emirates Stadium a fearsome place for Liverpool to play. The Spaniard said he expects another entertaining match against the Premier League leaders after the two sides played out a thrilling 1-1 draw at Anfield just before Christmas. And Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has admitted he cannot afford to take many risks with his team selection for the FA Cup third-round tie at Arsenal. Klopp is looking to strengthen his team with forward Mohamed Salah and Wataru Endo at the African Nations Cup and Asian Cup, while Dominic Szoboszlai has been ruled out for at least 2 matches with a hamstring problem. The return of Alexis McAllister and Ryan Gravenberch are likely to fill the gaps in the middle of the pitch, but the troublesome sport for the German coach is Salah's right-wing berth. And that's it on Sports News. It's back to you, Melinda.
Thanks, Victoria. On the international scene, the United States Supreme Court says next month it will hear the case of whether or not to determine Donald Trump can run for president in 2024. And this comes after the justices agreed to take up Mr. Trump's appeal against the decision by the state of Colorado to remove him from the ballot in that state. Ruling in the historic case will apply nationwide. Lawsuits in a number of states are seeking to disqualify Mr. Trump, arguing that he engaged in insurrection during the U.S. Capitol riot 3 years ago. And the main news again. The political drama in Rivers State has continued to unfold as some supporters of Governor Fubara have held rallies to back his administration, just as former Governor Nyesom Wike stormed another part of the state and said he was still in charge. Crisis resurfaced in the ruling APC in Benue State today after Governor Hyacinth Alia suspended the constituency by-election primary hours after the party announced its flag bearer for the polls. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami. On behalf of the team, good night.
This week on Dateline Abuja, we are looking at the protection of critical infrastructure in the nation's capital, which is basically the purview of the NSCDC, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. While we update you on major stories from the nation's capital in the past week on our Abuja Wrap, in our focus on the FCT, we look at arrest of infrastructure vandals in 2023. And in our interview segment, we examine the plans to keep these critical infrastructure safe in 2024. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kate.